There it is.
Hello and welcome to Let's Drone Out. With us this week is Curry Kitten.
Try again.
Everyone's favourite Curry Kitten.
Hello.
He answers to that. Nothing else. That's it. Unless Frank's here. Frank can get away with it. I can't.
Frank can get away with it. You can't.
And Jack, aka Brighton to Life Fly. No microphone there. And also our guest, Ike, aka Unit. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hello. Awesome to be here.
So I think we're going to be running through a few things you do. You've been quite an active developer recently with a couple of projects, AM32 and Betaflight also. And I think you were also judging the freestyle competition for Betaflight as well, right?
Yeah, that's true. We did that together. That was awesome. That was fun.
Great. So we were just talking about a 7-inch that you built, but before we go any further, I've got to share my own piece of irritating tragedy where this evening I managed to get something jammed where it should not be jammed. No, we're not talking about that again. This time it's a 3D printer. And the PTFE tube that's supposed to be, like self-lubricating and unjammable, yeah, it's got a bit of filament jammed in it. The rest of the printer's fine, but the bit that's supposed to be all slippy got jammed. So yeah, that sucks. Anyway, moving on. So you were talking about a big 7-inch that you're building with kind of ATES capable ESC.
Yeah, it's this one. It's in the AOS 7 from Chris Rosser with a Foxy Reaper 65 amp 8S capable ESC flash to AM32, right? And it was actually my first 7-inch flight ever. So I was very cautious and was not doing much. Also, the rates. I just put in my 5-inch rates from my 5-inch freestyle, and yeah, they felt quite low on this. And yeah, well, I was just cruising around and testing out if AM32 is holding strong. Later, I do like 1 or 2 light punch outs, and yeah, AM32, pretty awesome. It works pretty well and hold number strong. That those are 2807 on HQ prop 7-inch 3 blades, and they are drawing quite some current. And yeah, I was not expecting to work like that because I haven't tuned it anyhow. It's just plain default Betaflight, default pits, default filters. It's just flying very, 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 very well. A little bit of oscillations, which are expected when you don't tune anything, but yeah, that will get sorted out later.
What got you interested in AM32 then? Because it's kind of a struggle. Sometimes the flashing process takes a lot of work. You seem to have really gone into it 100%.
Oh yeah, when I started my drone life with a fly egg, I got a F3 back in the days and started on that. I destroyed it right away, and then I got into all the other stuff, and yeah, it was a BL Heli S ESC, which I flashed to Blue Jay. Then I got to know that there's BL Heli 32, yada yada yada, and I smoked some motors, some ESCs on BL Heli 32, and it was closed source then, so I couldn't figure out why. And that's basically when I stumbled over AM32. And yeah, at first, as you said, it's a little bit of a process to get a ESC to AM32, but yeah, I got used to it. And now every BL Heli 32 ESC in any of my quads is AM32. And yeah, then I got to know Alka as well. Pretty awesome. He is quite a brain when it comes to ESCs. And yeah, we got to chat, and then I offered that if he wants, I could join the development team. And now we are together in a team and developing on AM32. Yeah.
Excellent.
So speaking as someone that doesn't, I've not really experimented with like alternate ESC firmwares, and most of my stuff is it's what it came with, which is normally BL Heli S or BL32. What is the draw to AM32, and what might I be able to do with it that I can't do on the firmware I already have on my quads?
What you can't do, you can't smoke a motor that easy. That's one big thing. What changes if the stock motor protection on AM32 is really, really awesome. It's top notch. I have not seen anything work that well. I've never smoked anything with it, and I've flown right into concrete. And that's the ESC and the motors were sort of fine. Okay, I bent some motors and then they are trash after that, but they wouldn't smoke. So what AM32 also does is it has a way better torque curve. Chris Rosser already covered that when on his prop and motor test bench setup. He uses an AM32, and he showed the prop the torque curve on BL Heli 32 and AM32. Also, what I saw that you have in both ends, you have way better energy performance, which means I'm on my 3-inch, which I first flown on BL Heli 32. I got, when I was like moderate freestyling, I got around, I would say, 4 to 5 minutes, and then on AM32 I got 1 or 2 extra minutes when I was even pushing a little bit harder, and that got me. That really catched me, where I get more performance when I wanted, and I also get more flight time when I wanted, and that's my own experience. I can really say it's on every quad you get like 10 or 20% more flight time, but when I tested it at pretty much same LiPo, same quad, just different, or even the same ESC, but just on a different firmware.
Yeah, so Chris Rosser tested a few different firmwares to see what would happen, even through FETEC into the mix as well. And the output was that there's generally a much smoother torque curve with AM32. And I think it was coming out of a background of like RC crawlers and things where people would notice that the torque of a motor, whereas I think in quads, we don't generally immediately notice the torque. We just notice, is an ESC smooth or not? And that can be down to motors and all sorts of things. So he did a fair bit of testing to look into these torque curves, and was seeing that, you're getting very high maximum torque for a longer time with AM32, and it's kind of gradually increasing, whereas BL Heli 32 is a bit of an odd bird and kind of jumps around, doesn't really give you consistent torque. And I think that consistent torque is perhaps reflected in sometimes the current that goes into the motors, right? So you could end up putting more heat into the motors without intending to.
Yeah, imagine you have a torque curve that's jumping on different RPM levels or RPM sections. The flight controller has to compensate. If you want a flip or anything and it's wobbly, then it has to push in more power and flips around a little bit. You can see that sometimes. And if you have a smooth and well-rounded torque curve, it can actually work very, very well with that. And it's just it's my experience. I feel it has more power on the top end, and you can have more energy reserves on the low end if you fly it gentle.
Interesting.
For audio listeners, I was flashing up some of Chris Ross's graphs there, showing the kind of current graphs and torque graphs that he did, and that seems to be what people like. And it's kind of the acid test for an ESC and indeed a motor when you do snap rolls and fast racing turns where you have to stop 2 rotors completely dead, and you're damping to break those, and then you're getting the motors from 0 up to full speed as quickly as possible, and to do that without causing lots of excess heat or problems, vibration. That's what you want to achieve.
And I felt like that's better on AM32 than on but even I would even say that it's better on BL Heli S or even Blue Jay than on BLHeli32.
Well, yeah, they're still developing Blue Jay, aren't they? If you see
Yeah,
those guys
yeah.
talk about it, they've got a little GoFundMe or something, and they've got so many sets of cheap motors to test, and they'll just like thrash these things and be like, what does burn out the motor? Right, let's find out. These are the settings that burn motors, and then we keep repeating until we understand all the causes of motor burning, and we code around them.
Yeah, that's one thing that I like about AM32. It's fully open source. You can read every line of code. The bootloader is open source. The firmware itself is open source. The same with BLHeli, no, not BLHeli, as Blue Jay. Even though it's not readable by the normal developer because it's assembler, but yeah, it's open source, and that's what I like about stuff like that, because you depend your not your life but your drone on it, and to fly something that actually only a few people have control over is yeah, I don't know, I just don't like it. That's yeah, I like open source.
It sounds like you're going to make AM32 a bit more approachable right now as well, because Alco's been doing this one-man army, and you're kind of going in there and reorganizing the repo a little bit, making it easier to find stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Also what we are doing the last weeks, last month, is making it easier to develop, because right now we have a repository for G071, for F051, for 80 for the 8032 chips. It's all separate repositories. So if Alka does a fix or a performance improvement in one repository, has to kind of push it to every other, and that's what we are doing lately. We are making a multi-MCU repository, which is already finished. We in the last bits of publishing it. The plan was to actually make it public this week. I'm not sure if we can make it, but yeah, as Express LRS always say, it's always 2 weeks. So yeah, we will be finished in 2 weeks, and then we have a repository where a lot, I would say really a lot of performance improvements are in, and also where you have every firmware in from every repository in one, and so it's easier to find, easier to maintain, and I hope this will improve even the project even further.
Yeah, so Brandon Bean asks, regarding FETEC and KISS, the proponents of these firmwares are quite happy with the performance they achieve, but whenever it's analyzed and tested compared to Betaflight or Blue Jay or AM32, it always looks worse. Why is this? I don't know if you've looked at FETEC and KISS much.
No, it's I don't.
Let's just say it's religion then.
Yeah, I can't really answer
about religion.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have actually not touched any FETEC, KISS or KISS Ultra, anything. I have no gear in my home from this area.
Yeah, I've got a FETEC FC somewhere. It's never actually been flown. It's just kind of sitting in a box. I got it to get a 10S ESC actually, and 10S motors, and I flew those a couple of times. The ESC died very quickly, and I actually plan to replace it with an AM32 model to reduce the risk of burning stuff. Hopefully the motors survived, because they're hard to find 10S motors, like 22S and 10S motors. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have only 6S motors in my 7-inch. They are 6S 1300 kV, and I will just try to run them on 8S with a 75%.
There seems to be some disagreement about what a 6S motor is, because we were talking about this before, and some people say, oh yeah, 1500 kV, 6S 7-inch. Some people are like, oh, 1750 kV on 7-inch is fine, 6S. And other people will say, no, that's a 4S motor. What are you doing? You're crazy.
I have flown my 3-inch on 3500 kV on 6S. So there is actually no 6S motor. It's just what works with it. And if it's producing too much RPM on full throttle, then it just burns, or the prop just goes poof. And what works, it works. So if you take it, you just calculate the RPM and then see what current it goes. it will draw, and then if that works, yeah, you can try. If the manufacturer rates it at like 6S, 1300 kV, 6S, then it will most likely be perfect from 0 to 100% throttle. But yeah, if you go for it with with 8S, yeah, it's.
I think this is probably why I was getting problems, because I was trying to run 8S with Emax Eco motors. You know, they're not bad motors, but they are budget motors, and they were 1300 kV, and I was like, okay, 7-inch, like 7x4 blades, tri blades, and I'm going to put like 42 volts into you. We're going to see what not 42, would it be like 36 volts for 8S?
Yeah.
And see what happens. And yeah, they got to like the top of the throttle. I could get to like 85% throttle, but beyond that, things would get sketchy, and it would get kind of twitches. You know, you get twitches because it's desyncing.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping better motors.
What you also must take into consideration is that the ESCs, if the FET is rated for ADAS, they tend to have lower internal resistance but higher gate charges, which translate into they're not capable for so much RPM. So if you take the back EMF and everything into consideration, yeah, that's something I don't fully understand it. Alka is the brain behind it, but I got a little bit of that to understand. And if you design a ESC, you pick the parts for what you want to run, and you have the limitations. Either you have low internal resistance, which means you can run high currents, or you have a low internal the gate charge is very low, which means you can switch it on and off faster. And you have to match both. You can't have both very low. There are FETs that have both lowish, but neither of them are very low. It's just a balance. And if you design an ADAS ESC, you have to also the higher the voltage is, it's also in there in the equation.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of factors at play there. It was a lot of fun to fly around, and I didn't crash it, so it never got bad, but it would twitch.
Yeah. What I liked the most was that you have so much inertia when you do something. It's not like a 3-inch or even a 5 low weight 5-inch. If you do something, it's so fast from here to there, and the flip, then you go upside down, and it goes slowly back down. If you have the 7-inch, it's just so beefy, and if you do a fast turn, and you know it wants to drag out, and that's just something so different. What I was used to. That's very fun.
Yeah. Plus, with I think a really tight tune in that AOS frame, it's still got that tight feeling of the 5-inch. But you just do the punch and you're over the trees, and you think, oh, I'll do a quick invert, and you invert and you just carry on going up like a cannonball. It's great.
Yeah, I have not done that because I was a little bit afraid to crash it and destroy it.
Yeah. But you have been pushing your racing rig quite hard, right? I gather you were saying before the show.
That's this one. It's a light switch from 533 with a Foxy Reaper mini ESC 65 amps as well, and it's got AM32 as well. And this was actually a proof of concept because we wanted to know what we can actually push. And I ended up with pretty insane settings. If you go to the AM32 configurator, you can set up a KV slider. The KV slider is not really setting the KV. What it actually does is an amp protection. So if you go to 0, you have 0 amp protection. If you go to max, I don't even know what max is. I don't know, 9,000 or something like that. It has a lot of amp protection. And on this thing, normally if I start my AM32 tuning, I set it to the double of the KV of the motors. So those are 20 2010 kV axis flying motors, and I set it to 4,000, and then I just keep decreasing it and pushing and pushing and pushing, and I ended up with a stable build at 1,000 kV, which is pretty insane. Which means it has almost
Negligible
zero
current
temperature.
limit.
Yeah, and it's holding strong. I wasn't expecting that. It was like, yeah, around the ballpark of 1,500, 2,000 kV it would desync, but I haven't gotten one desync yet, and it's pretty insane. I haven't expected it, but because it's running the new performance improved firmware version, and we had so many issues. We had reports of desyncs, and we still have reports of desyncs with one particular MCU. And I will, if we have, do we have time for it? I will explain why this particular MCU is actually not good for ESCs in general. It's a good MCU, but it's not good for MCs for one particular reason. But to finish the first, yeah, we wanted to know if we actually solved the main issues with AM32 concerning desyncs, and we did. I would say we did. And yeah, this racing quad was the quad that I can drain in under a minute. The MCK best racing LiPo.
1300, you said?
Yeah, 1300, 500 milliamp hours, 6S Dogcom MCK V2. I don't know exactly, but that beefy LiPo. And if I really push it and going back and forth, it's empty in under a minute, which I find pretty good for a ESC firmware that was known for desyncing on some ESCs on high amperage.
Because I remember Lemon was saying, another racer was saying, "Oh yeah, I tried this 2 years ago, and I was seeing desyncs," and you were like, "Okay, right." So this type of thing is like, oh, you can't go in a straight line and just keep a full throttle and do a turn, 180-degree turn, it'll desync.
Yeah.
And
I
you're
did
like,
that.
no, I can do that for a minute until my battery is smoking, and
yes,
it's good.
Yeah, that's why actually Foxy has sent me some. I will flash them to AM32 and send them. I will send one 30x30 to Superfly. He will going to test it on his sync mode, which is my 5-in freestyle. I finally can put in AM32s in my sync modes. I'm so happy. And then I will flash the Foxy Reaper Mini and send them to Limon, and he can race test them.
He can give it hell and fly around concrete and smash it to pieces.
Yes, I mean, what else would you do?
What else? Yes.
Yeah.
So you're about to say there's one MCU that isn't good, and
yeah,
we talk like with Jack about kind of the history of ESCs, and Jack's always very keen to remind people of the little B and all these old chips. So maybe we can continue our ESC lineage. Jack, we still can't hear you. I don't know. Anyway, so we talked about like the little B. Oh, now we've heard
it's there, Jack, but it's very quiet.
So there's like I think Silicon Labs, the Busy Bee series that you started out with the BB1, and there was some stuff before that, but BB1 was where BL Heli S appeared, right? And then the BB2 and BB21, BB51 are what we've got now with Blue Jay. And that gives us RPM filtering via lots of kind of very clever assembly code, right? But then we moved on to BL Heli 32, and from that we took those MCUs forward. Do you want to do kind of the rundown, or should I can cover them if you like?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we have like the STM microelectronics, like with flight controllers. Everyone was quite used to programming these. So we have STM32 F051, which was on a lot of the early BL Heli 32 ESCs, and it's more a sedate speed. I think it's something like roughly the same speed as a BB21. It's not actually that fast. Then we started seeing the G071 from STM32 as well. That increased the speed a little bit, which made things interesting because the commutation of the ESC and the telemetry and everything has to account for a slightly different MCU speed. And then the big chip shortage hit us and everything just went sideways. And suddenly, instead of these being a couple of dollars, they're like $10 or more. And suddenly you don't want to put 4 of them on an ESC. So there started to be a lot of diversification, and people were looking around at something that behaved like an STM32 part, but was considerably less. And we started seeing Giga devices, GD32, so GD32 E230, and then there was a GD32 F350, which I think is the cursed one. And then we saw people trying to go for performance in their marketing materials, and they went to Artery Tech with AT32, and we've got like AT32 F421, and I think the F415 as well. And then I think what we're about to see appear is some chips from Airbot, which are the F4A, that take those F421s and they add like diodes and gates onto them.
A FET driver. It's a combination
FET
MCU
driver,
with,
sorry, yeah.
currently the current version has the AT32 F421 and a FET driver inside. And yeah, I have heard that there might be a version in the future with diodes inside, but yeah, not yet.
And this kind of ties to the STM32 spin stuff that was always kind of overpriced, and people didn't really like. It never got into that many products, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great MCU, the STM, but yeah, AM32 actually would work on it, I think. I'm not 100% sure. I won't continue because yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
That's
but
okay.
it's a great MCU, but yeah, it has its drawbacks, and also I think it's quite expensive.
Yeah, but the important thing is we've got a cheap part, and I think with the F4A stuff, which is the culmination of this, it now takes this 32-bit ESC and gets it to a footprint that's comparable with what you've got with Blue Jay and the old Busy Bee chips, right? So you're finally in that ballpark.
Correct.
Now,
yeah.
What about the cursed stuff? Sorry.
The cursed stuff, yeah. The Giga device E230. It's very simple. Alka actually told me just today why it's so doomed, and that's pretty easy. It's meant for running from minus 25 degrees Celsius to up to 85% degrees Celsius, and 85 degrees is not a lot for an ESC. If you like punch, if you do flips and rolls, it easily reaches 100 degrees. And then what actually happens, the MCU is running fine, but the comparators inside of the MCU is stopping. And then we don't have commutation, we don't have zero crossings anymore. So the ESC doesn't even know that the bell is spinning. So it just stops, because what kicks in is the stuck motor protection, which, because we don't see anything spinning anymore, because we don't have back EMF detection anymore, the stuck motor protection kicks in, and it shuts down the ESC. And yeah, that's why this MCU just doesn't work on AM32. I would say on neither firmware, because yeah, you will exceed this temperature limit quite easily on a ESC. And yeah, it's really a shame, because we have two very great ESCs from SkyStars, the KM55 and the AM60, which are really awesome ESCs, but they have this MCU, so you can't push it, and that's really a shame.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those. That's kind of a shame.
Yeah, because you can't really do anything. We can't fix it in software. We can't say, okay, yeah, we are around that temperature limit, because if you do really fast flying, it reaches so quickly that you can't really account for it.
Well, at least they ship with a very big heat spreader on them, so that's something.
Yeah, but that doesn't help if you have like 200 amps going through. It will reach a temperature. It can't get away fast enough.
But the 200 amps isn't going directly through the MCU. It's just near the MCU, isn't it?
Yeah, right. But the heat is pretty near, and also, yeah,
so you'll get away with it for a bit before the heat.
You can cruise with it. It's
saturation. Heat sinking is kind of like you've got a body, and you put the heat into this metal and into the board, and it takes a while to fully soak the whole board in heat, right? So you'll have like a window, a few seconds where it's good, maybe 15 seconds. But if you're a racer and you're pushing it for a whole minute, I guess that's when you get the problem, right?
Yeah, if you could do one test. If you have a heat gun, you put the ESC on a bench, put a motor on it, just spin it a little bit, point the heat gun at it, and when it's around 100 degrees,
it'll just stop.
Yeah. And if you go in a quad, if you do a flip or 2 flips, it could already be enough for one ESC to reach, because at 100 degrees it shuts off, but way before that it gets sketchy. So it's the zero crossings aren't getting detected good enough anymore. So that's more. It's when it goes too high, it just doesn't work very well anymore. So you can go like cruise with it. So put it in a long range quad and just cruise around. That will work.
Someone's saying it's 100C for some of them. I don't know if that's a variation of the chip or they're getting at. Livio, if you can expand on that, that'd be cool.
100C if the ESC is made in China, like many of them. Oh, the Skystars, AM30, KM30, yeah, the Skystars are producing them in China, yes. Or what do you actually mean?
I think he's implying that there's that the comparators might be a little bit more heat tolerant on some of them.
Oh, this MCU is not meant for high temperature. It's we are exceeding the limits of the documentation of this MCU, so it's kind of expected to fail.
Dope. That's why you should always read the data sheet like 3 times before you buy something, right?
Especially the limits, yes.
Vitroid is asking about the new Airbot Phoenix ESCs as well.
Oh yeah, they are most of them are using the F4A chip, and yeah, I've tested all of them, and they are actually pretty great. So yeah, go out, buy them. They don't have those limitations. They work great. They have the F4A chip, and it doesn't have any of those issues. If actually, Alka reported that he can get his it's actually another MCU, but the F4A is similar. He tested the a F051 with a heat gun as well, and it just stopped at 150 degree, which is quite higher than 100.
What about the F41? Is that's happy at 150 as well, or we're not sure?
I would say yes. I've pushed it really crazy. I mean, it's if you take the Foxy Reaper I have here in my Racer, it's actually the same MCU and the same fat driver, just in one MCU. So I would say yes, they would hold up strong at that degree.
Cool. Well, yeah, it's going to be good to see those, because I think for racers and anyone who wants an AIO as well, they're going to allow a lot more in smaller space. So you can either have a smaller board, or you can put bigger FETs on the same board, or you can make the board so there's stuff not close to the edge of the board to make it stronger. So only good things, right?
Yeah. If you take some of the Airbot AIOs, actually, you have the Phoenix G4 AIO, which has a little daughter board on the ESC side, which is actually the whole ESC. So you only place the FETs around, and then you have to make the traces to this daughter board, and then you have complete ESC, which will fit on every AIO.
Cool. Oh, we've got some clarification there. So Livio FPV replies, meaning that most of the ESCs use the cheapest parts they can use, and the heating is a direct result of that. You have to really stress the hell out of a good ESC to reach 100C. So yeah, I guess they're saying if it's a cheap ESC, it'll heat faster.
But if you make punch, there is a really short time where the FET is, I don't know, pushing 100 amps. Each FET, each ESC is pushing 100 amps roundish or something like that. Shit pilot, yes.
Hey, good to see you in the chat. We should probably take a minute and talk about this initiative that Lemon has sparked, a kind of good-natured joke amongst racing pilots, right?
Oh yeah, shit pilot. We all are shit pilots, right? I'm
you
proud to
just
be a shit
get
pilot.
up to the camera with the shirt there? Yep.
Yeah.
Some brand recognition for ship
Yes.
pilots the world over.
Oh
Part
yeah,
of the tribe.
I'm proud. I'm a proud ship pilot.
We're
Limon
all
gave
ship
me the
pilots
permission.
here.
Limon gave me the permission to call myself a ship pilot. So
That's good. Well, you've got to check. You got to check.
yeah. Okay. Now I forgot where I was.
Sorry, we were talking about heating ESCs, and I think
yeah.
FPV had said the good ones don't heat as much.
Yeah, I mean, if it's thick, then it can handle the heat way better. And cheap ESCs, and especially AIOs, can't be that heat resistant. And yeah, and you reach the temperature limit in a small part where the MCU is quite faster, and not the whole ESC is 100 degrees Celsius, but maybe that part alone. And even if the E230 gets near that temperature limit, like 70, 80 degrees, then it already starts to behave strange.
So you just got to hope that if you do have one of those ESCs, there's a good thick slice of copper through it, so it's not going to get too hot. Because the cheap ESCs, they want to use the minimum amount of copper so they can make them cheaply. As copper is expensive, right?
Yeah.
And it gets higher resistance, and higher resistance, it's hotter.
Yeah, that's true.
So my question in this is, I'm looking at the AM2 site and I see like there's a list of supported hardware. Is this extensive? Because this is my first time of even thinking about what the MCU is on like a board I have, and I've got apparently a BB21 MCU, if that makes any sense, but I don't see that.
Busy
it's that's an 8-bit MCU, and AM32 is 32-bit.
It's old.
Yeah. So the Busy Bees are the range that work with Blue Jay and BL Heli S.
I see. Right. But you're looking for 32-bit MCUs, basically.
Like
so a lot of iPod stuff works.
Busy Bee. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Livio said that the Fox Reaper telemetry doesn't send out temperature. I don't know. It does on AM32. I have temperature readings on my.
Is that on the serial port or EDT?
Oh no, EDT, extended telemetry.
Boom, there you are. That's probably it then, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure if Livio you are using KISS Ultra, right? I don't know if they have implemented EDT from DShot.
Yeah. So with EDT, instead of like a serial bus for all of the MCUs, it uses the DShot channel to each MCU for a dedicated telemetry feed from that, and it's much faster. Turnaround
because you basically get every DShot packet, you get a return the telemetry package, the RPM telemetry package back, and there you have some free bits, and that's the extended where you get like temperature and maybe in the future more.
Yep. So I think currently you have to switch it on, but it's kind of handy if you have issues with your voltage or current sensor. I got one board where the ADC just did not play ball, just some cheap FC, and I turned on EDT and boom, just read out the ESC and get voltage for all corners.
Yeah, I love EDT. I actually think I have flashed the latest 4.5 master yesterday, and EDT was on by default. I must double check it. I'm not sure. It could be. I mean, you don't lose anything.
It's an easy way to get temperature for your ESC as well, which is kind of useful.
And you don't lose anything, right? So if you have it, you don't need the ESC telemetry wire. And
the man himself. Hello, Alka. Thanks for all your good work, and thanks for starting all this.
Yeah. Awesome that you tuned in. I hope I have only told the truth so far.
The whole truth and nothing but
the truth. I don't know when you tuned in, but I said that you are the brain behind all this, and I'm not 100% sure on some parts. But yeah, the temperature is not calibrated. Actually on the Fox here it is. I flashed both the Reaper Mini and the Reaper on AM32, and I got pretty accurate temperature readings.
I guess it depends where they buy the MCUs from, then perhaps, or if they're doing any calibration after the fact.
I don't know if they can do the calibration themselves. I'm not sure if they have to be done at the factory where they produce the MCU.
I'd have thought it'd be a writable value, wouldn't it? Else how they calibrate it. Because it just gives you a raw reading, and you have to like match up the number to a lookup table that says this number means 20 degrees, this number is 30 degrees.
What they do is they have a chamber. They put it in the chamber. The chamber is flat on 30 degrees, and then they burn that as 30 degrees. And then the temperature sensor has a curve, and then it gets adjusted to that. This point is 30 degrees.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for all your work, Alka. That's really cool.
Yeah.
We've got Alexander Fedorov of Ultra asking about D-Shot 2400 as well, which I think was added to the firmware at from some KISS
I'm not
requests, right?
I think it should work the same. I mean, it's the RPM telemetry package. You have to implement RPM telemetry, and it should just work like that on D-Shot 2400. I don't think why it shouldn't. So
long as the timing works out, I guess. But I'm not sure. I remember when you got to the really crazy fast rates, there were some subtleties. I think Alka mentioned something about some stuff working at 1200 and not 2400, but
yeah,
I'm not the conversation. But yeah, it's all documented, and I think the Blue Jay crowd actually maintain a document that explains all the timing values and the encoding and everything. So that's a good place to start.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not getting into that. Okay, so yeah,
actually,
I guess
where can I see the YouTube chat?
Oh, sorry. Yes. If you have the YouTube video, choose to pop out the chat, and you can get a video. You can get the chat window without the video playing.
There you go.
We should also mention you've done a whole bunch of stuff for Betaflight as well.
Oh,
so
there it is.
There's some new features that you've really pushed for. Do you want to talk about any of those?
Yeah. My first contribution to Betaflight was the new page. And that's where I got actually invited. Ninja invited. It was pretty funny. I did the page with Betaflight. We together we coded basically the whole web page from Betaflight, and then over the night, next time I woke up, and then I was a Betaflight developer. That was pretty funny. And then my first contribution was I did the D-Shot bitbank code for the AD32 MCU. So we still haven't discovered the bug and why it's not working, but PWM D-Shot doesn't really work on AD32. We can't just get it to run. It's weird, but yeah, it doesn't work, and we don't actually have the time to get it done because the bitbank D-Shot code just works fine.
I've had this on some STM32 ASCs back in like the 4.3 days that just didn't work, and let's move on.
Yeah, I mean it works. The bitbank code is just fine. So why bother? And then I took over, or I got into the GPS code and implemented the M10 API into Betaflight. Yeah, that's my two big contributions, or rather big, but my two contributions to Betaflight.
Yeah, and you pointed me to some code snippet. I was experimenting with this little quad here, which has like one GPS at the back, and for good measure, another small GPS attached via this terribly unsafe wire that I haven't secured yet. Which I was testing out this ANA stuff that was supposed to improve the fix, and
yeah,
I think some FCs are just noisy, and yeah, I can't get a GPS.
Oh, the
fix.
ANA stuff doesn't really do anything about the connection itself. It's what it does is I must a disclaimer. I have no idea how GPS works. I just did the API code and how the communication with the M10 unit is.
Yeah, I mean,
being
what
done.
I'm saying is I've got a similar unit on other quads and it works fine. On this one, it's driving me a little crazy. But I did find on a different quad when I added those lines in to enable the ANA feature, instead of waiting for a couple of minutes, it was
Yeah,
right away.
that's pretty insane. It's the anonymous mode, which basically means that the GPS is building up the almanac on its own and pretty fast. So the normal way is it would wait for the satellites and then pull data, and then building up slowly. And with the anonymous mode, I have no idea why and how, but that process is done way faster. And yeah, that's actually a reason why the M10 units and some M8s are working so well. In my opinion, we should not do this or run the GPS unit without the ANA feature.
So I guess the outcome of your work around GPS really has been the kind of accelerated support for M10 GPS, right?
Yeah, we fully support the full M10 API. So we actually what got this started is that setting up an M10 unit on Betaflight was just a mess. You have to go to uCenter, do some stuff there, then write it into Flash, then put it back to Betaflight, and then set the baud rate correct, which is another part because the baud rate setting is a mess in Betaflight. Normally you would say, okay, when I set it to auto in the ports tab, then it would auto detect the current baud rate and then set it and then goes on. But it actually does the code on the GPS units. It's setting the baud rate you want. So when you set it to 1155, then it will detect this baud rate, which is the current. So I think default on M10 is 38200. And then it would detect that baud rate and then send the code, so it would run on 1152 and then would go on. And that's so counterintuitive because we also had a switch which got removed because I simply commented out the code. It was the auto baud rate, which implied could get the user to think that it then would auto detect or automate the highest possible baud rate or something. I don't know. What it actually does is when you lose connection to the GPS unit in flight, it reduces or it increments the baud rate index, and then it would set that new baud rate. So in the worst case, you are on 1155, and after auto baud rate hits, you are on 9600 baud rate, which is not possible to run on centers. And yeah, it was, yeah. And
thanks very much.
I was like, yeah,
I think there was a phase where like Chris Thompson was pretty much the only person who really understood GPS, and he was kind of slogging away, and then you've joined him, and between the two of you, it's gone from being this complete black box, like everyone's scared of GPS, to, oh wow, my quad just landed at my feet.
That's his part. I just did that the units behave well, and we can auto config M10 units on.
Well, I think you got the project out for scrape because people had actually started selling quads with M10 GPS before they were confirmed as working, right?
That was pretty hilarious because nobody on the Betaflight development team have ever seen an M10 unit, and yeah.
You got to love manufacturer relations like this. Like people start selling stuff, and you're like, wait, we don't support that. That doesn't work. And they're like, no, it's in the mail. We sent it to 10,000 people. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, then 5,000 or so 10,000 come to us and say this doesn't work, and we have to explain that. Yeah, you're lucky if it works because some of the M10 units are backwards compatible or work backwards compatible, and that's why some of the commands works, but not all. And then you get a unit which is not properly configured because not all units have flash or the BBR, the little.
I guess Alexander is pointing out he's dealing with a very small sample size from the ultra flyers, obviously, so he just gets lucky. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when was support for M10 added? Because I was just messing with one today, and again, I didn't have to do anything. It just worked. So I wanted to test it against M8.
I don't know. I would say half a year prior from
Okay,
now
so
on.
probably one of the 4 somethings.
It actually I developed it on 4.5, so it got backported. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
M10s are the best GPS. It's insane. I got one big GPS unit from Foxeer. It just I don't know for how long, but it must have been there for like years or so. I don't know how long, but I plugged it in, and the first time it was the really beefy one. It was really big, and I plugged it in, and I got a lock like 10 satellites in 30 seconds. It was insane.
Oh, I was testing this today. I had my Curious setup. I'll show you actually. It's almost like I've got.
I did notice when you get the bigger GPS, you get a lock much quicker. The small ones different.
This is not redundant GPSs. It's like my little test rig. So I could go outside, plug one in, test it, and see how long it took to get some satellites, and then unplug and plug the other one in and retest it. And yeah, it's faster. And I've got a particularly bad place for GPS in my garden. So the M8 got up to 8 in 5 minutes, which is amazing. Normally it gets like 5. But the M10 got 12 in about 3 minutes, and it got a very fast lock. And it was a complete cold start, straight out of the box.
That's really one of my best M10 units I was developing on, and it was sitting near me in my room behind concrete walls, and after 10 minutes I got 32 satellites inside.
I didn't get any inside. I've got a magic roof. No GPS signal can penetrate it, it would seem.
Yeah, well, I mean, initially when I started the development, I was always putting the GPS unit near my window because I wanted to have some. Yeah, then when I got into it and the commands are flowing and everything works, yeah, I just could have stood it near me because it just works.
Cool.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really fun. I had quite some calls with Chris Thompson. We chatted back and forth, and yeah, that was awesome. That was a really cool collaboration, and I think we did a good job because yeah, it's nice to hear that someone just plugs it in and it just works.
Just worked. In fact, I have to test it again because I forgot to turn on what's it called? One of the things that was written on the back, and it wasn't switched on. I thought I'm going to have to test that again. GLONASS. I noticed I forgot to turn it on in Betaflight, so I'll retest it and see if it makes a difference.
That actually you have like the Chinese satellites, the Russian satellites, the USA, and that's just able you just increase the number of possible satellites.
Yeah,
I actually, that's pretty funny, and I have no idea why. I have one M10 GPS unit from iFlight, and one can enable all satellites simultaneously, and one can't. I have no idea why.
I think what you can't do with these U-Blocks units is flash them to a newer firmware, right? So
oh yeah, no, you are stuck on what you got them.
Exactly. So you've probably got like one version of the U-Blocks firmware on one unit, and then 2 weeks later, new version of U-Blocks firmware.
Yeah, that's true.
That's kind of a problem with that. They're nice, they work really well, but it's very much controlled and locked down firmware. And I don't think we'll probably ever see an open source GPS, so just have to kind of work around it.
I mean, they work well. So if we have some limitations, it's acceptable, I guess.
And it looks like the NMEA stuff is probably going away soon, which is a little bit sad because I've got a few quads with them, but they never work that well.
Yeah, I'm glad that I only had to look at the U-Blocks code because yeah, and Mia is I don't like it.
It's old and confusing, and they're all binary messages instead of easy to read stuff. It's messy.
Even it works just fine. You're right, but it's not good.
And it's like one of these standards where there's a main standard, and then there's 101 different like manufacturer specific pieces on it as well, I think.
I can't say neither.
I thought the NMEA stuff was the quite human readable. Here's some ASCII text, but you have to decode it to determine what it's doing. Although if you have to debug it, you can at least like look at it and say, oh, right, this is happening.
I looked at it once at the code, and it's weird. I don't know if you take uBlocks, it has a pattern, it has bytecodes, you can decode it. You have, I don't know, it all makes sense. And for NMEA, it doesn't make sense. Maybe it's just me. It didn't make sense to me.
NMEA is like a very old standard, and people have tried to improve it, but the standard itself never got updated after the 1980s or early 1990s. So a lot of the things that make it better only work for a handful of units, and the rest of them don't work. I've got these ATGM 336H that are budget NMEA units, and they worked okay, but they relied on some fixes that only work on that one model of GPS and don't work for any of the rest of them, which made them like, it's kind of a risk putting a fix in like that, because you're just blindly assuming everyone's gone and bought that model, and if they haven't, what does it do? Undefined, which isn't great.
Yeah, that's not something you want in a unit that you rely your quad on. Like,
so we did have a formation flight on a while ago, and I was talking to them, and people appear to have kind of started to put more emphasis on the iNav MSP v2 sensors for GPS. It's something I was chatting on Discord earlier today, and I'm not sure if, do you think that might happen in 4.6? We're going to see like MSP capable GPS, or is that
we
not
just
really
recently started this. I can't really say much about it, so I won't confirm or deny anything, because I really don't know.
No, I wasn't looking for a hard commitment. I'm just wondering if it's an interesting thing, if it's
I would say
to look at or not.
Yes-ish. If we take the uBlocks code, if you go in and read it, it's still not good, because what would say good? It's limited, because if you take an F7 and you want perfect GPS rescue, you have to run 4K loop, because the GPS task is taking too long. So if you run 8K, it would sometimes mess up with the pit loop, and you don't want that. So you have to run 8K 4K to have.
This is why you need an H7.
Yeah, sort of, but you can. That's why the code isn't perfect. So if we go and do GPS over MSP, this might be a solution to this performance issue. So
because that's more you push the GPS coordinates rather than having to take all the GPS data and manually translate it yourself. You just get coordinates in the format that you want them.
Yeah.
We'll see. I've promised to test a 500 hertz GPS task firmware that Chris Thompson did as a response to me asking stupid questions a while ago. And it's still on my list. I still need to go and do that to make sure it works or doesn't work.
I compiled a 1 kilohertz GPS task version, and it didn't work very well. I wanted to answer to Fedor Commander. He said, the 1K loop works, but nobody wants to fly on 1K loop.
Yeah, we have people saying, why can't we run at like 32K? And the reason for that is, well, you get more noise from the gyro than useful signal, but 8K, you get more signal than you do at 1K. So 8K.
But I would say that we have nearly a perfect experience on 4K. So having to reduce it on 4K to rely on GPS rescue is something I would do every time. So that's nothing I would
I would get the H7 and just try and make it work.
I have there are other issues with H7. So
Yeah.
So I'm flying G4s and F7s mostly. The G4 is an amazing MCU because
Why G4 and not F4?
Because the G4 is more or less the successor to the F411. It has no DMA bug. It has plenty of AO, so we don't have to use soft serial. And also, it's a low. What's the name? It doesn't get hot. It's really, really cold. So when you compare the G4 to an F7 or even an F4, the G4 idles at like 40 degrees, and the F7 reaches 50, 55, 60 pretty easy on idle. And what heat does, it increases noise. And if you have all over cooler board, it will improve flight time. One of my favorite AIOs is the Phoenix G4 AIO from Airbot, and that's solely because it's just running really, really clean. I had neither issue with anything. I have tested the gyro noise on my oscilloscope, and it's perfect. It's just running, and even if it's getting hot, there's nothing that's inducing any noise anywhere.
That's interesting. I guess I was kind of a snob, and I thought, kind of looking at the chip lineup, just looking at the specs, I was like, oh, people are just using G4 because they can't get this other part, so that's why they're using it, and it's a more budget MCU. So yeah, I was kind of a snob about it.
I think at first that's actually not false. It's true, but then when you get to use it and test it, there are actually a lot of benefits. So if I want to, I must choose. I would always go for an for an G4 or an F7. If you need more I/O, you have to go for the F405. But when you don't need that, you can easily go with the G4 because it's running 8K 4K on bidirectional D-shot, pretty decent.
Was that the one where we had to enable all these low power UARTs to get more I/O on?
Yes, that's
G4?
exactly that one.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. I actually have to go.
No problem. I think we're getting towards the end of the stream anyway. So if people want to find the work that you've been doing, where can they find you?
On the Betaflight Discord or on the best drone community Discord ever out there, Drone Community. That's where my journey started. So that's why I'm wanted to call them.
Send us links. We'll put them in the show notes. Thanks very much. Thanks for joining us. Unit, aka Ike.
Yes, Ike. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for the invitation. Awesome to be here, and I hope it was informative, and you got to know.
I think we're all wiser and smarter now. So yeah, excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you. Right, you have been joined by everyone's favorite Curry Kitten.
Goodbye.
Jack, aka Brighten Till I Fly.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jack. We can hear you. Sorry, we couldn't hear you earlier. And the man who's probably got to dash soon. Thank you very much for your time. Unit, cheers.
Thank you for inviting me here. Bye bye.
Oh, and we should thank all our wonderful Patreons. Please support the show. Keep this train wreck going. You're wonderful. You're awesome. Thank you, Patreons.